I was so small when it all began. My name is Emily, and this is the story of my marriage, a marriage I never wanted. When I was only 18, my mother sat me down in our tiny kitchen and told me the truth. Emily, she said, her voice heavy, we don't have enough to survive. I can't feed you. The only way out is if you marry. I cried. I begged her not to do this to me. Mom, please. I don't want to marry. I'm too young. I want to study. I want to live my life. But her words cut through my protests. If you don't marry, Emily, then we will starve. The wedding was small. No laughter, no joy, no dancing. My dress was borrowed. My smile was fake. My husband's name was David. He was not cruel, not unkind, just quiet, distant, and older than me. He didn't look at me with love. He looked at me like someone who had been forced to, someone carrying his own pain. From the first night, I told him, we may be married, but I can't be your wife. I can't give you what you want. He nodded silently, surprising me. He didn't argue, didn't force, didn't even try to touch me. He simply said, I understand. And so, we lived under the same roof, but in different rooms. Days turned into months. We ate at the same table, but rarely spoke. He would ask, how was your day? And I would answer with one word. He would pass me the bread, and I would thank him softly. We were polite. We were respectful, but we were strangers. At night, I would hear his footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes I wondered if he stood outside my door, listening, hesitating, before walking away. Sometimes I heard him sigh in the dark, and I knew he was as lonely as I was. People in town called us the married couple who lived apart. They laughed at us. Some pitied me, some pitied him. But none of them knew the heaviness in my heart. I was trapped in a marriage I didn't want, yet I couldn't escape. But there were small things about David that I couldn't ignore. He never raised his voice at me. He never forced me into anything. When I was sick, he quietly left medicine and soup outside my door. When I cried at night, thinking no one could hear, he didn't say a word. But the next morning, there would be fresh flowers on the table. It confused me. How could someone respect my distance and still care for me at the same time? I started noticing him more. The way he sat alone on the porch, staring at the stars as if they were his only friends. The way he sometimes smiled at children playing on the street. A smile so soft, so fatherly. I began to realize he was lonely too. It was a stormy night in late September. The sky was dark, heavy with thunder. Rain poured against the windows. I sat in my room, hugging my knees, listening to the storm. I whispered to myself, is this all my life will ever be? A marriage without love? A house full of silence? Then there was a knock at my door. I froze, my heart raced. Slowly, I opened the door, and there he was, David, standing with his shirt damp from the rain. Emily, he said softly, almost nervously, are you afraid of the storm? I wanted to say no, but the truth slipped out. Yes, I am. For a moment, he didn't move. Then he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His eyes looked different that night, not distant, not cold, but vulnerable. The silence between us was no longer heavy. It was electric. I could hear the rain outside, the thunder shaking the walls. But inside, I could hear only my heartbeat. He sat down on the chair across the room, his hands trembling slightly. I don't want to scare you, he said quietly. I don't want you to feel alone tonight. Something inside me broke the wall I had built, the fear I had carried. Before I could stop myself, I stepped closer. His eyes widened, surprised, but he didn't move. My hands shook as I touched his shoulder, and in the next moment, I couldn't control myself. I leaned forward and kissed him. It was soft at first, trembling, uncertain. But then his arms wrapped around me safe, protective, like a cage that kept me from ever falling again. For the first time, I didn't feel trapped. I felt free. I lost myself in that moment in his warmth, in the storm outside, in the way he held me as if I was the most fragile thing in the world. That night, the distance between us finally shattered. We talked, we laughed, we kissed again and again. And we let the loneliness that had kept us apart fade away into the sound of the rain. We did not just share a room that night, we shared ourselves. The storm outside was fierce, but the storm inside our hearts finally found peace. From that night forward, our story began not the one my mother forced, but the one we chose together. We still had our separate rooms, but he no longer slept alone every night. We started sharing meals, not just sitting across from each other, but laughing, talking, really listening. I discovered he loved books and old music. He discovered I loved painting. He bought me canvases without saying a word. Little by little, strangers turned into partners. Of course, people still talked. Some said they're pretending to be happy, others whispered. That girl finally gave in. But they didn't know the truth. I didn't give in, I opened up. And he didn't take, he waited. He waited until my heart was ready. And when it was, he was there, patient, gentle, steady. We have children now, a home filled with laughter. Sometimes I look at David and wonder what if he hadn't knocked on my door that night? What if I had stayed locked in my fear, my anger, my distance? Sometimes love comes like rain, slow, steady, quiet at first, until it fills every empty corner of your heart. Marriage isn't always about romance from the start. Sometimes it's about patience, about waiting for two broken hearts to find the courage to heal together.